Okay, today we are going to be making the Alice. I'm going to be making the wristlet version. The pattern does come with two size options, a wristlet version and a wallet version. I'll be making the wristlet version in this video tutorial today, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to Sylvie from Lacus Designs for allowing us to use her pattern in the tutorial today. All right, so let's go over real quick the pieces that we're going to need. You are going to have your flat pieces. I am using this glitter vinyl from More Me Know. It has a fabric backing, so I am not using, it's pretty significant on its own, so I am not using any interfacing on it. For the lining of the flap, I have this Tula pink fabric here, and I've interfaced the back with SF101. You also will have main panels, so you have two in your exterior and two in your lining. There are cutouts in the bottom of each piece, and that measurement is provided in the pattern and on the pattern piece. On my exterior, because I'm using cotton woven, I've interfaced it with SF101, and I've also put some fusible fleece on the back of the exterior pieces. For the lining pieces, I have only interfaced with SF101. You will also have a front pocket piece, and I am using, again, this Tula pink fabric from I think it's the Untamed, I can't remember the collection name, but I'll link it in the pattern description here. And I have interfaced this because it is cotton woven, and I'm going to be using rivet snaps instead of the traditional magnetic snaps with prongs. So I've just put a little bit of Decoville light on the back. I've also interfaced this whole piece with SF101, and on all the pieces I've kept it out of the seam allowance. So as you can see, I've cut it down by 1/2 inch all the way around, and that is also noted in the pattern instructions. Okay, you will also need, if you're making a wrist strap, you can make it as a crossbody as well. I'm making a wristlet version, so I have a wrist strap. I will have a D-ring strap. You will have two pieces that are for your zipper ends, and I have cotton woven here interfaced with SF101. You will need, for the wristlet, a D-ring and your hardware, a zipper with a zipper pull, and I am using, like I said, I'm using these rivet snaps here, so I'm using rainbow hardware, and as you can see, they're all stuck together, magnetic. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to be working on is our front pocket, and that is the piece that I have interfaced with the Decoville light. There are measurements for where you will mark your fabric for the snap placement. I have decided to, I know this is probably supposed to be raindrops, but with it this direction, it reminds me of hot air balloons, so I'm going to be using my fabric in this direction, just so you don't think that I've done it upside down. That's a choice on purpose. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and punch these holes. Again, I'm using these magnetic rivets by Cam Snaps, and I will do this off camera and then be back to show you the next step. Okay, rivet snaps are installed, and if you haven't used these before, the back side just has this like what you would see in a typical rivet covering. So it doesn't have the additional, or the traditional, I should say, prongs that you have to flip to the side, and then usually you will put a piece of duct tape across the back to help protect it from wear and tear against the rest of the fabric. Since these have these smooth rivet attachments, I don't have to do that, so I can skip that step. So these are installed, and the next thing we're going to do is take this flap and fold it down, matching up this raw edge here, and then we are going to sew straight across the bottom here, straight across this open edge according, let me grab, here we go, another clip. All right, so we're going to sew straight across this according to the seam allowance. Okay, now that that is sewn straight across, creating this little tube here, I am just going to trim off these corners. That's just going to help to reduce some of the bulk there at the seam. Trim off these little strings. Okay, and then we're going to turn it through. This might be a little more tricky for me since I added the Decoville light, but it'll get there. I'll get it through. Okay, now that that is turned through, I'm going to just make sure these seams here are smoothed out, give it a nice press, and then we're going to top stitch according to the seam allowance straight across this top edge here. So our seam was down here, this is the folded edge, we're going to sew top stitch straight across that according to what the pattern instructions provide. Okay, once that is top stitched, you are going to draw a line down the center of the panel, and this is going to create our 2 individual card slots. So you're going to draw a line down the center, and then grabbing your main exterior, one of your main exterior panels, there are measurements provided in the pattern for how far up. I don't know if you can see, I've already marked a spot here on each side. And so I'm going to align the bottom edge of the pocket with that mark and clip the sides in place. I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I'm going to stitch down both sides, straight across the bottom, and then up and down here. So probably what I'll do is I'll start on one of the sides, I'll come across, go up, come back down, and finish to the other end. All right, once you get that sewn on, you can see you have your 2 individual card slots here. We can set this panel to the side for now. Okay, the next thing we're going to be working on is the flap. In the pattern instructions, if you are installing magnetic snaps with prongs, you will install that to your lining piece now, and then that's where you would flip the prongs over, apply any sort of Duckville Heavy or stabilizer, press prongs open, and put duct tape on the back to help protect the fabric. I'm going to be doing mine last since I'm doing rivet snaps, so I want the rivet part to show on the front of the bag, and then the snaps obviously on the inside, and then that will be done all at once. It'll go through both, so I don't have to do anything with the snaps just yet. So what I'm going to do now though is sew the flap together. So I'm taking both pieces, laying them right sides together, and clipping around. Let me grab a few more clips here. Okay, and on the other side, I did actually mark some curved edges here, and I put an idea of about where the snaps would be if I was using the traditional snaps, but since I'm not, you can just ignore these for right now. So I did draw the curve since I am not using interfacing here. Your interfacing typically would have the curve on it as the pattern provides, but since I am using this thicker vinyl, I didn't add interfacing, so I just drew on these curved edges. So now I'm going to start at the top, sew all the way around according to the seam allowance, following the curved edges here at the bottom, and then come back to the top. Okay, so that is stitched all the way around, following those curves on the edge there. So now what you want to do is you just want to trim it back by about half. I'm using my pinking shears. You can use regular scissors if you prefer, or if you don't have pinking shears. And then just when you get to the corner, I would just cut some snips into the corner there. Just cut from here up to the stitch line, so make sure you don't cut into your stitch line, just cut up to the stitch line, and that's going to help your flap to stay nice and rounded and flat in that corner. So that will just help it to lay better once you get it turned through. Okay, so since I'm using pinking shears, I don't have to do the additional snips. So now I'm just going to turn it through. Okay, and then once you get it turned through, you're just going to make sure your corners are pressed out nicely the way you want them to be. And then I'm just going to add some clips here. I'm using these clips instead of these clips. And that's because these clips will leave a mark on the vinyl where these clips won't. Now the mark on the vinyl, if you use the other clips, the mark on the vinyl will go away. It's not permanent, but if you don't want it, if you don't want to see it on your vinyl, then I would use a different style of clip. Okay, so once I get this clipped all the way around, I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and top stitch according to the seam allowance. I'm going to top stitch all the way around the outside and then straight across the top as well. Okay, now that that is done, let's see, I wanted to show you I used white on this side, and then I did kind of a fun color. It might be kind of hard to see, but it ties in with the color in the flowers on that side. Okay, so once you have that done, we are now going to attach the flap to the other exterior main panel. So you're going to flip it over so you have the flat edge of the flap, and you're going to align it centered along the bottom here. And I'm just going to use traditional clips here because it's going to be in the seam allowance, and I don't care if it has a couple marks for a little bit. Okay, then there are measurements provided in the pattern. I've marked it here. I'm using a heat erasable pen, so if you see me marking on my fabric, this pen will erase with heat, so I'm not too worried about that. So I've marked down on each side a mark according to the measurement in the pattern. That is the mark, that is my guide where I'm going to start stitching on here on the vinyl. I'm going to stitch down. I'm just going to stitch right on top of the line I already made, stitch all the way straight across, and then follow this line up again, stopping, making sure to start and stop, you know, add a couple back stitches right at the beginning and at the end, so that will attach this to our exterior panel. All right, now that that is stitched on, you will see it's nice and secure, and then on the inside it also creates this really cute little flap that's going to be on the back. So that's going to be adorbs. All right, so once you get that done, we are done with this panel for now, and we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, the next thing we're going to work on is the zipper. So making sure your zipper pull is installed. I'm going to set this to the side for just a moment. For each of your zipper tab ends, you're going to fold it in half. And then taking those sides, you're going to fold it into the center like this. So once you have that center line, you can either finger press it or you can draw a line down the center. Then you're going to fold each side into that center and then fold it in half again. So you're creating this little piece here that has no raw edge. You're going to slide the end of your zipper inside of that zipper tab. I'm going to clip this in place. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. So folding it in half and then to the center again, and then in half again, creating that little sandwich, squishy little sandwich. Okay, clipping it to both sides. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to sew right along this edge here, attaching these tabs to the zipper. Okay, once that is attached, now we just need to trim off the extra fabric so that the zipper tabs match the width of the zipper tape. Like that. Okay, we can set that to the side. Now we're ready to start putting it all together. So for this next part, we're going to need to mark the center of our zippers and the center of all of our panels. So our main exterior, I'm just going to fold it in half this way and mark a spot there in the center. And then for each of the lining panels and the exterior panel, to find the center, you can always finger press it. You can make a little mark, or I'm just going to make a tiny snip right there in the corner. You see it shows like a little V. That will be within the seam allowance, so it won't be a problem when sewing it together. later on. You know, it'll still have the strength that it needs. It's not compromising anything by making this little cut. All right, this one, oh, I don't know if you just heard the snaps because they're magnetic. They decided to hold together. There you go. Even though they're both the same. That's funny. Okay, and then for the zipper, I'm just going to fold it in half, give it a finger press, and then with a pen, I'm not going to cut into the zipper tape because I don't want to compromise that. Sometimes it frays if you cut into it. So I just make a center fold and make sure that's right on that side. Center fold. Yep. Yep. Okay, so now I have all the centers marked. Now what we're going to do is grab our piece with the pocket. I'm going to put these other pieces to the side. And then we're going to take our zipper and with the zipper pull the closing going towards this side. So the flat end of your zipper pull should be towards the right. The open and close will be on this side. We're going to flip it teeth side down. And we're going to match up that center mark we made on the zipper with the center mark on the fabric. And go ahead and clip it in place. Okay, so once you have that clipped, you can baste the zipper in place. So you can baste the zipper on, or you can just do what I'm doing, skip the basting, take one of your lining panels, flip it over so it's right sides down, lining left and right. We're going to clip that in place as well. Clip that right on top. So your zipper is creating a sandwich in the middle with your lining and your exterior panels. Like that. Now what you're going to do is, according to the pattern instructions, we're going to sew straight across according to the seam allowance noted. Once that is sewn across, you're going to open up the panels and pressing the seam allowance towards the exterior. So your lining and your zipper will be this way, your exterior and your seam allowance is this way. You're going to top stitch right along this folded edge. Okay, now that that is top stitched, I'm just going to fold the lining panel out of the way. We need to repeat the process for the other side. So grabbing your remaining lining panel and your exterior panel with the flap, you could, which I think I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a clip here at the bottom to hold the flap out of the way so that I can sew along this edge here. So now what I'm going to do is with that center mark there and the other center mark that I made on the zipper, I'm going to match those up. Again, you're working with the right side of your exterior panel and the right side of your zipper tape. This side will be a little more tricky because you have the pocket, the flap that wants to get in the way. So it's making it a little bit tight, but there's plenty of room, so don't worry about that. All right, so I'm just clipping this all the way across. There we go. And then the same, if you want to baste this one on just because you have this extra bulk here, that might be a good idea. Then we're going to take this other lining panel, flip it over, attaching that as well. Just like on the other side, we're going to sew across and then open it up and top stitch on this exterior piece only. All right, so once that is sewn on, your zipper is now attached between all of your panels. Because I am doing the D-ring, I'm going to set this to the side just for a moment grabbing my D-ring tab. Before I put these exterior and lining panels together, I need to attach the D-ring. So just like we did on the zipper tab ends, you're going to draw a line down the center here, and let me see, let me grab my ruler. It is, what, 2 inches wide, so just drawing that center line there, and then we're going to fold to the center, like that. We're not going to fold it in half because that's going to be way too thick. We only need to fold it in half once. And I'm going to use some double-sided tape to help hold this in place. But then we are going to top stitch down the 2 long sides. So let me just add, this is 1/2 inch double-sided tape. And if you're not a convert yet to the double-sided tape, I highly encourage giving it a try. I can't live without my double-sided tape. Okay, so just like that, pressing it to the center. Now you're going to flip it over and you're going to just top stitch down each long edge. Okay, top stitch. Now we need to grab our D-ring. We're going to slide the tab inside the D-ring with that seam edge on the bottom. Fold the D-ring in half. And then we're going to come on over to our panels here, and I'm going to flip. So I'm only working with the piece that has the pocket. Where the zipper opens and closes, that's where I want my D-ring. I want it to be on that side. I don't want it to be on the other side, because then I feel like the zipper, once you're hanging it from your wrist, the zipper is going to be at the bottom and stuff could fall out. So I'm going to let this overhang. This isn't mentioned in the pattern. This is just me. I'm going to let it overhang by about 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to, let me see. Let me use some stronger clips here that I have. I'm going to clip it in place. There we go. And then I'm just going to baste stitch this on to hold this in place. Okay, now that that is basted in place, and I will say that for the majority of this wallet, I'm sewing this on my Juki TL2000 QI, which is sort of a heavy-duty semi-industrial machine, and it is doing perfectly for all of this. For pieces like this, where it's super thick, several, 4 layers of vinyl, I do have an industrial. I have a Sailrite fabricator, and I'm just using that to secure that piece in place. So just so you know, depending on your machine and the material you use, either you're going to struggle with it, or you might have to bump up your the strength of your machine or your needle, so that you don't have problems sewing through stuff like that. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to take our 2 exteriors and our 2 linings, and we're going to put them right sides together. Now for this pocket here, I need to fold this out of the way, fold it in half so that I can get to these pieces here. Okay, and then I'm going to clip in place. I'm going to clip in place across the bottom. I'm just doing it, there's no preference here as to which side you do first. I'm just doing the exterior side first, since it has that pocket, and the pocket's a little, it makes it a little more bulky. So I just want to get that side secured first. Okay, and then here, where the D-ring tab is, again, I'm going to use a heavier clip just to help hold that. Okay, and then on the other side as well, I don't have a D-ring on this side, but this is right where a lot of the bulk is from the flap, so I'm just using a stronger clip there to, if nothing else, it helps hold everything in place and avoids slipping while you're trying to sew it all together. Okay, so once you get that all clipped in place, now what we need to do is sew around the perimeter. So you'll notice I left an opening here. There is a measurement, I believe there's a measurement in the pattern for how much of an opening that you should leave, but this is going to be your turning hole. So you're not going to sew here. So I'm going to start probably about right here. I'm going to sew to the end and then sew around each of these sides, leaving about probably 4 to 5 inches open here at the bottom so that I can turn it through. So again, you can start and stop at each end, or here you could leave your needle down, turn your panel, and then keep sewing. And that's going to, if you've ever done that, that's going to kind of keep these pieces together. So when you go to do your box corners, it makes it a little bit easier, but not a big deal if you don't. You just want to sew those 3 sides and then a little bit here and a little bit here. All right, so I have all of that sewn. I left a turning gap here at the bottom so that you can reach in. I'm just gonna reach in and make sure that my zipper is opened. There we go, so it shouldn't be too hard to turn it through. I did want to show, if you weren't sure what I was talking about earlier, if you left your needle down, see how it kind of pulls this in? So when you go to box your corners, it's already kind of done the work for you. You don't really have to do a whole lot. So what I'm just doing here is I'm just nesting those seams. So what that means is one of the seam allowances I'm pushing this way, the other one I'm pushing this way, and I'm just rolling it until those seams butt up against each other on the inside. I'm going to clip it in place there. And then I'm just going to add a couple clips down on the side, and that's just going to help, again, as another secure point to make sure that nothing shifts while I'm sewing. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same, boxing all 4 corners. This side I'm not going to clip on the side over here because right here is where the magnetic snap is and it kind of doesn't, it won't go there. So I will just add a clip to the one side, and then same thing over here on this side. Again, trying to get those seams nested as well as you can. It's a little trickier, especially depending on the fabric you chose for your exterior. So it could be a little trickier getting it clipped on that side. Okay, so now this is what we've got going on. We're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew across each corner according to the seam allowance provided in the instructions. So sewing across all 4 corners. Okay, once all of your corners are sewn, I'm just going to trim the lining side slightly here. Trimming it back by probably about 1/3. You don't have to do this, but it's just something that I like to do to kind of reduce any bulk there. And then, let me see, I'm actually going to trim this back a bit as well. I don't want that much of the tab sticking out on the inside. Okay, now I'm just going to turn it through carefully. Okay, so once you get it turned through like this, what you want to do is just press your lining to the inside and push out the corners. Make sure everything is laying nice and looking good, and you're happy with how it looks. Okay, and on the inside, It's looking good. There's a little bit extra there because I haven't closed up the seam. You just want to make sure that it's laying nice. If there's anything that needs to be adjusted, you can turn it back through and then adjust it before you sew up this final opening here. So the last thing we need to do to finish this part of the wallet, I still need to make the wrist strap, but to finish up, I keep calling it a wallet. This is more of a clutch. This is the larger size in the pattern. There is a smaller one as well that's called the wallet. If you like big wallets, you can call the clutch a wallet. Okay, so the last thing we need to do here is just sew straight across, and I'm going to sew as close as I can to that edge to close that seam. So that's going to be about 1/8 of an inch or less of a seam allowance straight across this edge to close that seam. All right, so that is all sewn together. I'm just trimming off some loose strings here. Okay, and I'm going to push this back through to the inside, pushing in those corners. This is so cute. I love the fabric. I love the brightness and the fun and funkiness of it all. Okay, so that's how that's looking. Now the last thing we will do, and my zipper's a little wavy, but I think it all needs a good final press, and that will fix that issue. The last thing, because I decided to do rivet snaps, is that I need to mark the placements here on the front of the flap so that I can install the rivet snaps. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, what I did was I lined the edge of the flap up with the bottom of this front pocket, and I'm pressing down on the snap to see where it's located. And then the center of the snap, I'm just verifying here that I've marked it correctly. So the center of the snap here is where I drew this little circle. Keeping that in place, I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Marking that center. I think right there and right there. Let me just double check again. I'm going to move this one in a little bit. So right there and right there. It almost looks like a dot from the flower center. Okay, so right there and right there is where I'm going to make my holes. And then I'm going to attach the other side of the rivet snaps. And I will do this off camera and be right back. All right, so give that a nice little press. That's how it's looking. You guys, this is so cute. Pocket in the back, pocket inside. This would be great to fit your phone, some cards, and then inside you can have some gum or mints, your key, maybe some cash. It's so cute. All right, so I attached those snaps, and there you go. That's how it looks from the front and the back. So cute. Okay, so the last thing that I need to do then to finish is to create the wrist strap. So again, just like we did on the other piece, we can draw a line down the center. And there are instructions in the pattern for how you can create your wrist strap and your D-ring. I'm doing them a little differently than how they are provided in the pattern, and that's just because I'm using this thicker vinyl as opposed to a cotton woven fabric. So I can't quite do everything as easily with the vinyl. So I'm just modifying slightly, but the end result will be the same. Okay, so removing that double-sided tape, I'm going to fold to the center here to that center line. Flipping it around, I'm going to do the same thing again. Instead of this one, I don't know if you can see, I'm leaving the smallest gap. So instead of butting it right up next to the other side, I'm just leaving this slight gap, and that's just going to help it to fold. If it was right up, butted up right up next to it, it probably would struggle to fold in half. So now I am just going to clip this in place all the way down. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. And because I'm using vinyl, I'm going to have to use my industrial on this, because again, this is 4 layers of vinyl that I'll be sewing through. And I'm going to sew all the way around the outside of the strap. All right, once you get that top stitch, the last thing we need to do is attach our hardware. So I'm just going to slide it in probably about 1 inch or so. I'm going to bring the other edge down to meet the hardware, and then I'm going to fold this up and over. Now you guys, look how thick this is. She's thick. This little wrist strap is thick. So I don't think I have any rivets that are long enough to go through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch a row straight across, fingers crossed that my industrial can handle it. But I also want to put in my little label, my little woven label. So I'm going to, sorry if you guys hear my dog. We have a service person at the house, and he's not able to go say hello to the service person, so it's pretty tragic. All right, so that's kind of what I'm going for right there. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and fingers crossed it'll work. Well, I gave it the old college try, as they say, and my machine just was not happy. She did not like the 12 layers of vinyl. So what I did was I decided I'm going to change it up, not do a lobster clasp, and I will just do an old traditional keyring. So I'm just laying these up, matching up the ends here. I did punch some holes in the ends where these little teeth will go in, and that's just to help it give it something like a starting point, because sometimes it struggles with trying to get through all these layers of vinyl. And I'm just going to press this in place. I did add a little bit of glue as well. There we go. All right, and I got my little label on the end there, so that'll work. That will work. And then I will just clip this to the B-ring. There you go. There we go, you guys. This is so cute, and I think this D-ring works. It still works. Would I do vinyl next time here? Probably not. And then I might do the fabric handle instead of the vinyl, but I still think she's cute with the vinyl here and here, because it does tie into the flap here. And then again, opening up the flap, you got the pocket, the 2 card slots here, and then your interior zipper pocket. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, this was the Alice by Lacus Design. And again, thank you so much to Sylvie for allowing us to use her pattern in the tutorial today for this month's Marathon Sewciety make. And I hope you guys have fun making yours. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day with the other tutorials that are available. And I hope you just go sew something fun.